Welcome to episode 3 of the Kickin' It Studios Devlog series. In the last episode, we actually got a prototype going, which was awesome. We were able to move around our hands and control the character in the game. All of that was working in virtual reality. Super cool. Now, I want to get this looking a bit more like an actual game, and not the default creepy, gray iRobot vibes that it currently has. And that means learning about 3D art. I've done a bit of 2D art, including pixel art and drawing and painting, but since this is a VR game, 2D just isn't gonna cut it. There are a few ways to get 3D models, including buying assets or downloading them for free, paying an artist to make them for me, or doing it myself. Since I clearly like doing things the hard way and hate spending money, I'm gonna do it all myself. So, how do I make 3D art? I'll save you the long story and cut to the chase. Blender. It is a free piece of software that is absolutely incredible. To get started, it was time to follow some tutorials. That means, of course, I started with the almighty donut tutorial. And if you follow it through, you'll learn a lot of the basics and some of the advanceds for how the program works. For the aesthetic of my game, I decided to go with a low poly design. I did this for a few reasons. First, low poly is faster and easier to make as a beginner than trying to achieve a highly detailed and realistic look. Second, low poly gives me a simple way to keep all of the elements of my game visually consistent. Third, I just really like the way that low poly looks. It has a bit of a retro and minimalistic vibe to it, sort of like the 3D equivalent of pixel art. Fourth, a lot of the objects and characters are only ever going to be seen at a distance, since this is a third-person VR game. So adding in a bunch of extra details and textures would kind of be a waste of time. And finally, low poly is highly performant. The Quest and Quest 2 are remarkable pieces of technology, but they don't have that much processing power inside of them. With low poly, the models have less geometry to worry about. Anything I can do to reduce the workload on the computer seems like a good idea, especially since I don't know how to code, so my programs are not going to be written as efficiently as they could be. Once I settled on a low poly aesthetic, I started making a bunch of small items and environmental pieces that I could use in my game. I built this new room, made some skulls, made some spears, made some stalactites, stuff that I would be able to sort of sprinkle around in the world and decorate the space that I made and not make it feel quite so empty. And I'll show you here. We'll show a quick time lapse and I'll do some talking over it. But I also decided to make a treasure chest and key. So take a look at that. It's going on right now. Hopefully the video looks good. It took me about 50 minutes all together. But I'm really pleased with the final result. I think it came out looking good. And again, the idea is that it's very readable, very clear from a distance. It looks good and it'll fit in with all of the other items. Once I had some assets created, it was time to export them from Blender into Unreal. Okay, so now I actually wanted to make a character. I made this sketch of how I wanted them to look and then tried to recreate it in Blender. And I made a couple different versions, which again, you can see on screen now. But it's also tough because then you're adding animation in on top of that. A lot of the stuff I've been designing up until now either doesn't move, like it's a crate. The crate doesn't have any animation, it's just an object. Or like even the treasure chest, it's just the top piece moves and the bottom piece stays still. With a character, all of a sudden like you have arm joints and you have legs and you have a character that like moves around and their head has to move. And thankfully Blender, it has a feature in it, Rigify, adds a skeleton into your scene. So if you move the skeleton, it moves the mesh for you. And I'll show you what that looks like. Here's me doing that. Ooh, I've got a prop. This is kind of what it looks like with Rigify. It's very similar to this actually. We'll do a classic T-pose. So then you get into the next fun part, which is animating. So in order to make a walk, we're gonna start by taking a step. So set a keyframe, and then the next keyframe you set is gonna be a little bit further. It is actually almost easier in Blender than it is with this thing. Keyframe 2, 3, 4, 5. We've made it through almost one cycle. So I did that and tried to recreate all of the base animations that I thought I would need, at least to get the character moving around sort of the same way that the Unreal mannequin was doing. So that includes a walk and a run, as well as a jump, a little flinch, and then I also created a attack animation. Because again, the game is kind of currently built so that I can play it with both controller and in VR. And then lastly, I built another animation where the character kind of holds up their hand like this. And that could be either used for something like holding a crossbow or shooting magic or something like that. But those were kind of the base animations that I wanted to have. I got that into Unreal. We're so close. We're almost at the finish line. I'll show a little footage here. This is me playing it with a controller. You can see I'm running around this new environment. We've got a character running around. It looks awesome. Check it out. Love it. And then it's time to actually get it into VR. And I'm like, easy. I've gotten the VR working. It works with the mannequin. I've gotten the character into the thing. It works. He's running around, all that. No worries, right? Wrong. So wrong. I bring it into VR, and all of a sudden, the character's arms, they're kind of just stuck. Sometimes it just looks like a praying mantis where the guy's like arms are up here and the hands are like dragged way down. Something is clearly super broken with this, which is it just seems like for some reason the skeleton, the Rigify skeleton from Blender is like 99.9% compatible with Unreal. But that 0.1% is just killing me. There's a couple points where I'm like almost ready to give up. I'm sure I'm missing something. If somebody out there has ever run into this sort of issue before, please let me know. I'll tell you what my solution was, but it seems like this should be a much more straightforward thing. But eventually I find a plugin for Blender called UIfy, which is basically Unreal Engine-ify. It is a plugin that tweaks the skeleton, the Rigify skeleton, in Blender. You go through a bunch of extra steps, and then when it finishes, it's built in the same way as the skeleton for Unreal. So this is where I cracked, everybody. I have to admit it. I cracked. I broke a little bit. I broke my own rule. I spent some money here. The UIfy add-on was $30. I paid that. I was at my wit's end. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I'd done all this work. I'd gotten so far, and I could like taste victory. So I paid it. I go into Unreal. I get this thing loaded up. I strap on the headset, cross my fingers a little bit, hit play, and it works. And all of a sudden, I'm now controlling this character that I built and designed and modeled in Blender. I'm actually like standing there in this world that I also built, controlling this character, moving him around. Like I have like the whole game development journey so far has been like a series of peaks and valleys. The valleys are super depressing and frustrating and you almost feel like you're gonna give up because you don't know how to fix, you don't even know how to find you don't even know how to ask the question to figure out the problem that you're stuck on. And then once you figure it out, those peaks are like amazing. This was the highlight for me. Like everything else has been super cool. Learning the 3D model is awesome, but actually getting to control this character, and it's kind of similar to my last video where I was blown away just even controlling the Unreal mannequin. This is on a different level. And it's so fun because now it's finally starting to look like a game. Like I can actually show you guys, this is what I'm making. It's more fun to share the content because it actually looks unique. So anyway, long story short, happy I spent that money, would recommend it. I'll link to that plugin because if anybody is trying to do something similar and running into these issues, like I really don't know how else you would solve this, but we figured it out. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. This is so cool. I'll show some more game footage. I'll just sort of run some footage here showing what this looks like, but it's crazy. It's awesome. And I think that's a good place to end this episode. Next time, we'll add in some enemies and combat and damage and actually get some sword fighting happening. Obviously, give this video a thumbs up and a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, share this video with somebody who you think might enjoy it. Also, if you like Blender and you like 3D modeling, check out my Instagram and Twitter. I've been posting 3D models daily to both of those things, just to help me connect with more people and share some of the art and stuff that I'm making. And then, on top of all of that, I made a bunch of low poly weapons, which I'm showing on screen here. And I've actually released this as an asset pack for free on itch.io. So if you're like me and you're working on a game, but you don't want to dive in all the way on all of this 3D modeling stuff, or if you're just looking to expand the number of assets and weapons you have in your game, please feel free to download this. It's free. Check that out. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this episode. I'm having a great time. It's fun to share this stuff with you, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. I don't know what I'm gonna say next. I'm gonna kind of be surprised when the words come out of my mouth.